everybody, I'm Amy, this is my wife Maggie, and
Hello.
together we're ThinkerThemer, and Happy New Year!
Happy New Year!
Welcome back to 2024, and what a way to start the year than to talk about our most anticipated new games. And I say new games because this year we're doing something a little bit different, just like we did with our best games of 2023. We're dividing this up into two videos, and mostly because this year there are a lot of second editions, big boxes, expansions coming up out that we're pretty excited about, but we didn't want to muddy this list too much. So we're going to keep those for a second video. This one's just going to focus on new to world board games.
So nice. There's also, as we were going through the list, we realized there were some things that were on our 2023 most anticipated list that haven't really been out yet, so they're still on an anticipated. They would have made it.
Some of them have updated the year to 2024.
Yeah, so they would have made it into this list, but we're not going to include them as part of the list because they've already been included. So I'll kind of name them so that you know the ones that it would have been, the outstandings. One is Unconscious Mind, so that's one that I'm very, very keen for. The other one is Slay the Spire. I've also got Aridia, the Paths We Dare Tread, Flow,
yes,
and Mythwind. So those were all mine that I believe, were all in my 2023 list. They're still anticipated.
We did get a sneak peek at Flow
Yes.
at Essenspiel actually, and
Beautiful.
it's a much bigger game than we
Yes.
expected. It's super cute, but it seems like there's a lot of playing out your life in a village, and anyway, a lot going on there. So I'm also excited to see what that brings. And then there's also some games that we have already covered that are 2024 releases. So you might watch this list and be like, but what about that game? And that's because we've already played it. So it makes it hard for us to compare it to games that we really have no idea how they're going to play. So that's Critter Kitchen is a big one. Andromeda's Edge, and Through Ice and Snow we haven't played. That's
no,
one
that's on the
that's one
other,
that was on
my
my
previous
anticipated list last year.
I think the other one is Arcs that we have played and covered.
Yes.
Even though that one we actually had a chance to play the new version because it's sort of been going through a lot of obviously development and changes and improvements, and it's changed a fair bit. It's better. It's even better. So,
it is better now, and excited to see what happens in the final tweaking of that. So so lots of games, but we've actually found more games that we're anticipating for this year that some of them we don't know a lot about. So as always, this list is purely speculation based on what we think we'll enjoy, based on the cover art, sometimes just a short description on BGG, and sometimes if we're lucky, a quick look at the rule book.
Yes, which sometimes is not even available. So sometimes you're just kind of having to make a bit of a stretch based on, do we know the designer? Have they done anything that we've liked? Or is it a good publishing kind of house or company? So, or sometimes for me, it's just like, it just looks incredibly adorable and I am in.
Okay, enough preamble. All right, let's get into the list.
Okay, so my number 10 is a game called Cafe Bara, which is a play on words. Is that a play on words? It's because it's actually capybaras running a coffee shop or running a cafe. And so it's Cafe Baras, and it is adorable. This is coming from a designer that we do know, so not in person, but as in we know their design. So this is Roberta Taylor, and
you're just acting like we're besties with Roberta Taylor.
I mean,
I
feel like you know people, you get to know designers through playing their game. I feel like it's a way of connecting at an even deeper level than if you even met them in person potentially. And it's also the same publishing team that brought us Creature Comforts, which I adore, and it's the same super cozy setting that's been created. It's not the same environment because this is a coffee shop. You're trying to, so you're a capybara running a coffee shop, and you're trying to turn all your drop-in customers and make them into loyal forever patrons.
That's cute.
Super cute. And so it's going to be largely sort of multi-use cards. You're going to be building a tableau, and then you have the option of, as you're drafting cards, deciding whether or not to use them to kind of essentially purchase the different types of food or the things that are going to go in your cafe, your decorations. You have to kind of create the vibe. Or if you're going to actually just be delivering things or serving things to your customers to make some money, if you manage to meet all the needs of your customers or your customer kind of card, then they become forever customers. So fairly simple. I imagine it's going to be in a similar level of complexity of like Maple Valley, which I haven't had a chance to play, and that's also been on one of the ones that I've been keen to play. That one is out, and Creature Comforts, of course. So very, very excited for that one. That's my number 10 at Cafe Bara.
Are you able to get a matcha or a chai?
I will make sure of that.
Because Maggie doesn't drink coffee.
I don't drink coffee, no.
She's naturally caffeinated generally.
As you can sometimes tell. Yeah, so even if there isn't a matcha or a chai card, I will make one. I will just, homebrew my own card.
Cute choice.
Yeah.
Now, my number 10 is a game by Ryan Courtney, who is most famous for those brain-burny designs like Pipeline, Curious Cargo, and Trailblazers most recently, which we found like very difficult.
It was so hard.
So
it was a beautiful production, and it's just so unassuming. You start playing, you're like, oh my
this is
goodness,
hard.
this hurts my brain. Yeah.
Anyway, this is not in that route building style family. This is, the game is Spectral, and it's actually a deduction game. And I do like a good deduction game where it's not social deduction, it's more kind of, when you're like marking things off and try and narrow down
something. Yeah.
Yeah, and in this game, the game board is actually in 4 different quadrants, and within each quadrant there's 4 different rooms, and you're going to be placing your, let's call them your workers, out in the corridors between these rooms. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to find gems and you're trying to avoid curses. But what you're going to be doing on your turn is you're going to be able to pick up some of the room cards and get clues as to where curses and gems are located in the surrounding rooms. So you're not picking it up and being like, oh, there's a gem in this room. You're picking it up and it's like, there is a gem 2 spaces away from this room. And so you're trying to like work out where gems and curses are. And then you're marking off corridors as well because you don't want to be next to a curse. And then there's a really interesting element in this game where essentially it's kind of a bit Keyflower-esque where you are bidding with workers for corridors. So once you go out there, someone can bump you out of a corridor if they think, hey, now I have worked out there's gems in this location. I'm going to have to pay double the amount of workers that you put out there in order to bump you. And so there's kind of this like auction bidding, worker bidding placement style thing going on, and then of course a lot of deduction where you're marking things off a pad. I don't know, it looks really interesting.
Sounds
really
intriguing.
Cool. Yeah. I think it just looks like a great little puzzle, so I'm excited to try that out. That is my number 10, Spectral.
My number 9 is a game called Stone Spine Architects by Jordi Adams, and this is it's coming from Thunderworks, and so it's a bit, I think it's in the same kind of realm where it's very reminiscent of things like cartographers and like that whole sort of world. But in this game, what you're doing is you're an architect creating a dungeon, and so you're going to be drafting all these different cards to essentially fill out this puzzle of your dungeon as you're excavating the different caves or paths that your dungeon is going to have. And all of those things are going to have, there's going to be different goals that you're going to be trying to achieve along the way. There's also going to be some objectives that will kind of make some particular requirements. And then it's got this thing of in between rounds, whoever ends up kind of going out or sort of finishing or passing first gets to sort of, you're kind of collecting money as well. And you're going to be using that money, so that person gets to get the most sort of money. You get to have a market round where you actually get to purchase upgrades or purchase sometimes even end game type objectives or just things that are going to be adding things up to your dungeon. And we actually got a chance to very briefly play one game of it, and I found myself really enamored by the puzzle, going, oh, I kind of really want to play this again.
Yeah, because all of the dungeon cards, I think a couple of things that stood out to me about this game is like on the cards, there's lots of items printed on them. So there might be certain creatures that you're looking to collect, or there might be traps of a particular type. But then the things that you're shopping for are really the ability to add those items into rooms that don't have them, so that you're building out that kind of requirement.
Yeah.
And I really liked the element of you can choose to go out at any time when you're drafting the cards, but the first person who goes out gets to choose that end game scoring objective, and that can be really important for the end
for the
game.
points and stuff. Yeah. So again, it's a game that is like I was not expecting as I sat down to play it that I'd be so taken by. So I'm excited to, and that was even a prototype, I believe, that we played. So I'm actually really excited for the final version. So that is my number 9, Stone Spine Architects.
Now, my number 9, but also Maggie's number 8, so we'll talk about it at the same time.
Yes, makes sense.
Makes sense. We're just efficient in 2024. Is a game called Fromage. And this is a game that, actually, first of all, it's the designers of The Search for Planet X and First in Flight. Great designers.
Yep.
But it's also coming from the publisher who did Canvas. So this is why everyone's paying attention to this very, very beautiful, aesthetically pleasing game. And firstly, we love cheese.
Yeah, it's all about cheese.
Absolutely love cheese.
Cheese is incredible. So
cheese is incredible.
Yeah.
We went to a whole festival about cheese last year.
Yeah, in Italy. That was amazing. The town of Bra and the whole town for this whole weekend, and it happens every 2 years, taken over by this cheese festival. All the streets, everything is closed down, everything is just walkable, and it's all stalls of cheese and wine, and that's pretty much it as far as the eye can see.
Cheese heaven.
It was incredible. Chevin. We were
anyway, in this game, you are playing as cheese producers in none other than France, of course, where most of the world's best cheese comes from, and the board is a lazy Susan. It turns and you're going to have different quadrants placed in front of you, and the quadrant that's facing you is going to be the one that you're going to be playing in simultaneously with all the other players around the table. Now, what's interesting is that each of the quadrants of this, it is actually meant to be a wheel of cheese. Each of the segments actually has a different mini game per se, that has a different scoring condition.
Puzzle, let's say.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I think the thing that attracted me to it, the concept is as the wheel turns, that's when the cheese is aging. And so there's this whole thing of you were not really able to fully kind of take that action back or activate that until it kind of comes back.
I know, that's my favorite part.
Yeah.
That's my favorite part, is the direction that you place, because your workers, there are 3 workers representing 3 different types of cheese, but the workers are a little slice of cheese, like a cheese wedge. And depending on which way you face it, is kind of indicating how long it will take before that worker comes back to you. And the way that you know when the worker comes back to you is as the wheel turns, the big wheel turns and the quadrants move on, you get to remove any workers that are pointing towards you. Clever.
Very clever.
So clever.
So I'm keen to check it out. So
I am too. It's a bit lower on my list because I think it might be like midway, like kind of like entry level, like it might be a bit lighter. But it is beautiful and,
a light and delightful cheese.
That's what they say about cheese.
It's just a light snack. Yeah.
Anyway, that is my number 9, Maggie's number 8, Fromage. Now we've done it again because my number 8 is Maggie's number 7.
Just always one step more excited. Just one little bit.
It's the exact same list, just more excited.
I'm more excited.
So I'm trying to outdo you with your excitement. Anyway, the game is Inventions, Evolution of an Idea.
Nope, Evolution of Ideas.
Dang.
I was so close.
Why is it so hard?
The game is Inventions, Evolution of... The game is Inventions, Evolution of Ideas.
Yes.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
And the designer is none other than Vita.
The game is Inventions, Evolution of Ideas. And it's by Vital Lacerda. And it's a big, chunky, strategic Euro game. Now, which we usually love.
Yeah,
Vital
actually,
Lacerda
has 2 games coming out this year.
Been very prolific.
Least.
Yes. And so the other one is called House of Fado, which I love as a theme, because Fado is that Portuguese it's almost like a soap opera in a song. It's just very dramatic and very, it's usually like one singer and a guitar, and it's just incredible. But that one looks like it's going to be a lot lighter. I feel like it's going to be in the space of Mercado de Lisboa, like that sort of thing. So we're talking about invention, evolution of ideas. Look how fast I was able to say that.
Sure.
So yeah, tell us about the game.
This game, well, you know what? This is a very, very heavy game.
Yes.
Our friends Monique and Naveen from Before You Play, if you want to see a playthrough, go and check theirs out. It was a long playthrough because this is an intense game. But at the baseline, the idea is not intense. You are essentially trying to create all of the great inventions over the course of history. So you start in, I think, the Stone Ages, and you're working your way all the way through, and the inventions are going to get more and more sophisticated as they did. And the way that this game works is that there is like this communal contribution to these inventions being put out and shared into the world. So it starts as an idea. An idea is a card that you're going to be playing into the central board. And once someone has sparked the idea, then anybody else can come along and be like, that's a great idea, I'm going to invent it. So they can invent it, then someone else is able to come in and be like, I'm going to innovate on that idea or that invention, and then finally it can be shared. And so the idea is to talk about the collaboration and the way that, you know, things progress and technology progresses through this sharing and innovating. But it's much more complicated than that, of course. In order to, you know, create the invention, you need to have met some milestones first of all, and that similar type. There are so many other things that are going on in this game. There is a card system that once you take those cards, you're building out a tableau as well that allows you to trigger some other effects. There are these combo tokens that can activate that give you extra turns.
The different workers, and then the specialists as the resource. And then,
so essentially you're going to be getting things done by placing out these columns as workers. And then you're collecting specialists. One of the specialist types, I believe, is called thinkers.
Well, that's
how it made it onto this list.
Clearly the reason it's featured here.
And then there's also this map which has like all of these spots for specialists that connects through to the cards that are on the board. And so when you return those specialists or recruit them back, they take on that whatever type of specialist they're linked to as a card. Like, just so many layers.
I feel like there was a lot of ideas in this one execution of an idea. So there you go.
Starts with simple concepts and just gets more and more layered.
I love that the, you know how often it's like, what are they going to use as the victory points? This is IPP, which is intellectual property points.
Makes sense.
It makes sense. So whichever society, because you're kind of all representing different societies, whichever society has the most intellectual property points is the most prosperous and is going to be the winner at the end of the game. I like that.
I actually really enjoy the theme of this one.
Yeah, me too.
And that's why it's on the list. I thought actually it was going to be maybe a bit lighter than some of his other titles, but Monique and Naveen have put it somewhere in the realm of just below On Mars, and On Mars is pretty heavy. It's also a game that doesn't get to our table very often because of the weight of it, and so that's what's kept it like a little bit lower on my list, but still really looking forward to getting this one to the table. So, oh no, I have to say it again. That is my number 8, Maggie's number 7, Inventions, Evolution of an Idea.
Oh, nailed it. Well done.
Evolution of ideas.
Evolution of ideas.
My number 7 is a game called Restart, and this game is by the same designers as and publisher as Age of Rome, which was one of my biggest surprises of 2023 in terms of like games of the year. It was number 4 for me, and I actually really enjoy a game that has slightly more interaction, and Age of Rome really delivered on that. And I think that this new game Restart will have that interactive element because there's not a lot of information to go on, but it's being described as a tactical engine builder.
Okay.
And I really love the thematic premise of this game.
Yeah, me too.
So basically you are trying to go back in time in order to undo what was done that created this terrible dystopian future. And so you play as your adult current self as well as your younger self. And you're able to go back in time, but when you go back in time to try and change the chain of events, you are going to tire yourself out, and so you need to recover from that time travel. But interestingly, I think, is that you create that that kind of butterfly effect, that chain of events that impacts on other players because you're changing what's happening in the future. So I just really like the idea of that. I think it's really clever. I think the other cool thing about this game is there's going to be a campaign mode. And the way the campaign mode works is that you'll finish playing a game, and because you've altered the future so much, because of everything you did, actually we ended up with a zombie apocalypse. Oops.
As you do. Yeah.
So the next game, you start with a zombie apocalypse and you're trying to go backwards to rewrite the future into something else.
Sounds fun.
Yeah. So it sounds like there's lots of bad ways that things could go down.
I mean, there's a lot of wrong paths that walk down.
Yeah, but I don't have there's no rule book available, so I really want to learn more about this game. So this one is pure speculation based on previous game by the designers, and
Very
just
cool
a
concept.
really cool concept and theme. The artwork as well just looks really beautiful. So that's why my number 7 is Restart.
My number 6 is a game called Avant-Garde, where you're going to be trying to create the best collection of cubist artwork. Now, what I love about this game is a very accessible deck builder, where you start out with a hand of cards of very low values. I think they're mostly like in their 1s and 2s, different colors. And what you're going to try and do is you're going to try and chain, so play down a chain of cards, and the way you're going to chain them is either by, say, if I play a 1, then the next card can be a 1 or the same color as that previous one, and then the next card can either match color or number, and then sort of seeing as many as you possibly can. And then the length of that chain that you manage to create is the amount of money that then you have to purchase other cards, which usually are going to be cards of higher value, which will go into your deck, and some of them actually have other abilities and other kind of ways of even boosting the amount of money or just changing a few different things. Ultimately, what you're trying to do is have rounds where you're making enough money that you kind of cross over a threshold, and then you get these little kind of trophies. All at the end of the game is whoever manages to collect the most trophies. I can't remember if it's a set number that then triggers end of game. But very, very simple, and I just loved. I did get a chance to we got a chance to see a demo of this.
No, we played it. We played it at Gen Con. Because I remember because I was terrible at it. You were really good at it.
I really enjoyed it. Yeah, but I think it's the color thing. Sometimes when it's So and even the box that it comes in, the way it sort of unfolds.
Oh, that is so cool because it's like it unravels.
Yeah,
but then the game is set up.
Yeah, it's ready to play.
Go.
So it's like the market. So it sort of like unravels, and then the market is just kind of ready to play.
Love that innovation.
So clever. So that's from the publisher Resonim, who I just can't wait for this game. Very, very excited. So that is my number 6, Avant-Garde.
And my number 6, you'll never guess, is Maggie's number 5.
Not again.
Not again.
Not me. I'm more excited. No.
So this game actually is actually surprised that it's on my list at all, to be honest.
How is it even on your list at all?
Yeah. This game is called, can you say it?
Conservas.
Oh, you say it so much nicer than I would.
Conservas.
Yeah. Which means preserve,
yeah.
I believe.
Yeah.
But this game is, first of all, the publisher of this game is Salt and Pepper Games. Now, Salt and Pepper Games had 2 games in our top 10 small box games of last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Witchcraft,
which is
a solo game, as is this one that we're about to talk about, which is why it's a surprise that it's in Amy's list at all. And Battle of Versailles. Yeah. That's the other one. Yeah.
And they came out of nowhere for us, and they went straight to the top of the list. They're amazing. So just now really excited to see what this publisher is doing. This particular game is also designed by Scott Elms. Now, it is a solo game, and I do not play solo, but the twice when I have been intrigued enough to play a game solo has always been a Scott Elms game. I don't know why. It's just the theme. Yeah. It's just the little, the button shy Scott Elms games have been sitting around. I'm like, oh, might as well give it a go. Yeah. But this one is a bit bigger of a box, a bit bigger game. And the theme of this game, though, is I think one of the best themes that I personally could come up with for me to play.
You would really resonate with it, yes.
It is preserving fish in cans. And
also in the ocean, so there's an element of sustainability. Yeah.
Well, which is why the name has a double meaning. So it's about preservation of the fish and of the environment. But I want to go back to the fish for a second.
Yeah.
Because I love canned sardines.
She really does.
That is just
sardines
something.
and anchovies and just like all this stinky fish that I'm like, I just can't.
Maggie hates it.
But Amy loves it. And
I really do. It's very good for you. Anyway.
It is very good for you.
Anyway, so in this game, you are catching sardines and you're canning sardines along with a range of other seafoods. But in this game, what you're trying to do is you're really trying to balance off I should say it is a solo game, but it's a bag builder.
Yes.
So that in and of itself is really cool. And what you're filling your ocean bag with is lots of different seafoods and sea creatures. Seafoods. You can eat them also. But I
feel like they're sea creatures.
They're sea creatures. I know, I'm just thinking about sardines on toast and not everybody's cup of tea. Yeah. But anyway, so you are trying to allow enough of these sea creatures to exist when you pull them from your bag and leave them in open waters so that they can
reproduce or sort of keep the species going.
Yeah, which is really difficult because you've only got a set number of, I think it's 7 rounds, and you're trying...
Depending on the scenario, because it's a whole scenario book, so you have different months and they're all a different kind of setup and different objectives.
Yeah, so you have a small amount of rounds, and what you're trying to do is you're trying to gain money, and you use this money because, money is a goal of the game, so there's a money value that you need to meet. There's also a number of sea creatures left in the ocean that you need
seafood, according to seafood left in the ocean for now.
I was very careful not to make that. Then you can also use the money to spend to buy upgrades, which are going to be cards that are going to help you along the way. And you can also buy new boats, because what you're going to be doing is you're going to be drawing tokens out of this bag, and you only get to draw the number of times as the number of boats that you have. Plus, you're only going to be able to keep the seafood on your boat according to the storage capacity of each of those boats. I don't know if I just described this very well.
Yeah.
But I'm just really intrigued to play it. It looks really cool. The art is beautiful.
I really like the art. It's very reminiscent of the sort of vintagey art that you see on actual tins of fish. So I really love the aesthetic of it.
Yeah, and so we will be covering this game actually on the channel, and it's super excited to get into it, and I'm probably going to play a solo game.
Ooh.
Look out. So that is my number 6 and your number 5.
Conservas.
So now we're up to my number 5, which is a game called Clandestines, which is the follow-up game by Jason Brooks, who designed Legacies. And this game is about being part of a secret society. So all of the players are going to play as a different secret society, but the real draw card for me here are the mechanics, because this board is a interlocking combo of Mancala and rondelles.
2 for 2. There you go.
Tick, tick. Love both of those mechanics. And the board itself actually has these little rondelles in front of each player. It's really cool. The game itself, I wish I could tell you more about it. We sat down and we had like a 1 round kind of talk through by Jason at Gen Con, which was amazing. But I can't remember that conversation, and there's no information online. But I do remember that the game kind of is a bit tongue-in-cheek about the whole secret society thing, and part of your role is to cleanse up the chaos that's going on behind the scenes. And
it clearly made an impression, obviously. Even if you don't remember all the details, and you can't really.
And the point of this list is to say that I'm keen to find out more.
Yeah. I'm anticipating what it's going to be like.
I'm really excited to kind of see the artwork as well, because it was in a very prototype stage when we first saw it. So I'm excited to see how that develops. So that is my number 5, Clandestines.
Okay, so my number 4 is Clank Legacy 2. Now, we haven't actually played Clank Legacy 1. We have played Clank, which I really, really enjoyed, because it's, mostly, it's a deck builder. And I love this concept of, you're kind of going down in this dungeon, trying to grab this treasure and get out in time. And, you're kind of collecting clank or the noise that's going to wake up this this kind of sleeping dragon. So I find that really quirky, and I don't know if quirky is the right word, but I just enjoy it. So we had this standing date to play with these friends. We were going to go through Clank Legacy 1, and then COVID happened, and so then we moved away, and we haven't seen them.
So what's gonna happen? Are you feeling like you're gonna jump straight into Clank Legacy?
I don't know if you can. I might be tempted to. I need to actually do more research and see if is it okay. I don't know if the story is dependent. It is still
probably
called,
not.
Like it is still called what is it? The Acquisitions Incorporated, and then it's got a separate little kind of title after that. But I don't know, because it is just going to be like that sequence of different scenarios and things that kind of evolve. Yeah. So the core of the game is the same as obviously Clank, but this one also there's an opportunity to do it's still competitive, but there's an opportunity to play elements of it co-op or like semi kind of co-op. Need to learn more about it. It probably won't. Yeah. Well, no, it's not a co-op overall game. Okay. It's still going to have competitive things, but I think there's going to be some central things that you're all going to be contributing towards. So Clank Legacy 2 is my number 4.
I'm excited that's on your list.
Yeah.
Because I just want to play it with you.
Me too.
I enjoy those legacy games. They're fun.
Yeah.
Anyway, my number 4 is a game that's probably too fun for Maggie. Maggie hates fun.
Oh, no.
It's a party-style game.
No.
It's the only one on the list.
Oh, no.
But this game is by Peter C. Hayward, so a fellow
Good
Australian.
games. Yeah.
And publisher All Play. So they make, very good quality games, both of them.
Yeah.
And so this game is called Things in Rings. And this game is all about the humble Venn diagram. And I'm an analyst in my day job, and I love a good Venn. I just enjoy that. This makes perfect sense as a game. And let me explain to you how it works. It does. So you have one person who plays as the knower. This person understands the rules to the Venn diagram. And if most people are familiar with a Venn diagram, but you've got one concept on the left, one concept on the right. Sometimes there's 3 concepts, and then they overlap to different degrees. So right in the center, you will have the overlap of all 3 descriptors of the item that you're going to be placing in there. So all of the people around the table are going to have a pile of items that they're trying to discard into this Venn diagram. And the knower knows if that item fits within the right category within that circle or the overlap. So all you're going to be doing is playing a card out, and if it's right, then the knower will simply say, yep, that's right, and then you get to place another card. And the objective is to get rid of all your cards. Super simple.
Okay, that sounds pretty simple.
Yeah, if you get it wrong, the knower's going to tell you that it's wrong. They're going to place it in the correct spot.
Okay.
And unfortunately, that ends your turn, and you have to draw a new card.
So then you're going backwards a little bit.
Exactly.
But now you have more information.
So
does that mean that then everyone has more information?
Everybody has more information, because as you start to deduce what this Venn diagram is all about by the things that fall into each category,
interesting,
you get faster and better at it.
There you go. All right. I'm going to humor that.
Yeah, you're intrigued.
I'm intrigued.
You're intrigued. Yeah. Well, I'm excited about it. Things in Rings is my number 4.
My number 3 is a game called Witchbound, which is a game about a town called, what is it? Coven Cove. It's this really cute, cozy town that hasn't seen a witch in over 100 years. And all of a sudden, by fate or mistake, your own witch abilities have awakened. And so you're like, uh-oh, what to do with this? And how, what's this all about? And so you're going to be venturing around this very, very cute, cozy looking town in the style of almost those Stardew Valley type RPG games. That's sort of like the look of it. And it's going to be linking you to, I should say it's a solo game. I don't know if you'll be on board with this. There's too much narrative already.
Yeah, it does sound like a lot of narrative.
Yeah. So what you're going to be doing is a solo game. As you're exploring the town, you're going to be able to interact with different people and elements based on the numbers. They all have different numbers and codes attached to them. that then you go into the book and reference that book. But the cool thing about this is, so there's like obviously the big narrative book with, the bits of story, is as you're collecting things, you can then combine the number of those things with, for example, the number of a person. So for example, if the person is like, let's say 20 and I have item 1, I can then look up item 120, like 120, and it's the equivalent of me in using that item to interact with the person. Cool. And so there's all these different kind of combinations that then means that I think at some point you end up even creating potions or trying to see if some things work. And so, yeah, you only find out when you make those combinations and you go into the book and have a read of that. I was very attracted to this sense of, I just love open world type explorations. I love being able to kind of discover characters and go on a bit of a narrative adventure. And I was just really pulled into the aesthetic of this game. It just looks super charming.
The cover art is actually beautiful.
Yeah. But even just like, just that cozy little world and so I think this is I can't wait for this one. So this is Witchbound, my number 3.
Now, my number 3 is a game called Cascadero, which is one of the new releases by Reiner Knizia this year. Love a puzzle that he creates, and this one looks like an interesting one, but also quite a straightforward game as well, one that will be easy to get to the table. Beautiful Ian O'Toole art as well, I should say. But this game, you are essentially moving your envoys out to different towns. And you want to go to these towns because when there's like adjacency points that you're going to get. But the tension in it is that if you go there first, you're going to get fewer points. Then if you wait until there's like a groundswell of people and opponents that have visited there as well, and then you get more points. And there's all these tracks that you're trying to influence. And what's interesting is you can't even be considered for winner of the game unless you've met your success condition by the end of the game. So you need to move your particular colored track up as well. So you're thinking about that. But I just love this idea of whether you go to lots of cities quickly, or you try and create like a chain, or you wait for other people. And there just seems to be lots of dynamics that you can play with. The other side of the board also has basically a baked-in expansion, a farmer expansion as well. And so it just feels like there's enough in it that makes it kind of interesting. But also it's going to be something that will be really easy to teach. So I'm just intrigued by that. I just feel like it's in my top 3 because it's quite aesthetically pleasing, but you can just tell that it's just going to have a high degree of interactivity, low rules overhead. And for me, those games are getting to the table much more often than anything else because I love sharing games. And so, ones that look beautiful and have like a very clear, like, what
and it's going to have a really interesting scoring condition because Reiner Knizia apparently is all about starting with the end going, what kind of quirky scoring thing is going to then be the thing that you're spending the whole game trying to make sure that happens. So cool.
I love the idea of as well just not even being able to be considered for the win unless you've met some kind of condition. Brutal. But anyway, that is my number 3, Cascadero.
My number 2 is a game called Raz, A Dance of Love, which is based on Raz, this Indian dance. And the way the game itself plays is you have all these interlocking gears and all these different dancers on top of them, which when we actually got a chance to play a prototype of it. At that time, it was dice. I don't know, obviously, if those things have changed, but all sorts of different colored dice. And as the gears change, it's representing all these sort of dancers moving around. And what you're trying to do is find these adjacencies to have these kind of love matches, which are usually based on, from memory, was either based on the color or the number, which would usually represent their, almost like their preference or the style of music that they're into and things like that. So there's that element. But then also the place that you take the dancer from, because you're essentially recruiting for your dance troupe. So the place that you take the dancing from, it becomes the action that you get to actually activate for that turn. So there's a couple of things kind of going on, and then there's also obviously different goals and objectives and upgrades that you can acquire along the way. I loved how They have kind of like the different songs that are going to be the sort of the round that kind of set the goals and the tone for the round. And at the time that we saw the prototype, Mihir, the designer, said that like he had the intention was to actually match songs and have a playlist that you can be listening to as you're playing it.
Yeah.
And I just like as I was playing this, it's like the whole thing having this really colorful thing and the way the gears move and then everything else sort of moves. It just really made it come alive. And I'm just so excited because I had a great time even just playing that prototype at the time. So yeah, I'm excited to see what happens with the final product.
There is nothing, this prototype is so incredible looking from a mechanical perspective.
Yes.
Like the way that everything turns, it just has incredible table presence. But I have not struggled more with a game. And
it's not a difficult game.
It's not
like
difficult
medium,
at all. And what was
medium
really
light,
interesting is this is when I started to unravel this idea of like, I really struggle with colors. And when the options are all based on different color combos, my brain just goes into some kind of like meltdown, and everybody else is like, no, it's really easy to see what your options are. And I'm like, I have so many options, and it's very hard for me to focus. But I actually spoke to Mihir, the designer, afterwards about the struggles that I was having with, and I think he actually created a more simplified version.
Yeah,
So,
he said he'd made some modifications based on that feedback.
So it's like, I'm going to be responsible for now the dumbing down of games.
Well, no, I'm making it even more accessible to more
I think
players.
it's just, exactly. I think everyone has different cognitive difficulties, and this would, for some reason, the color is just one for me. And so, I don't know what tweaks is made, but I'm intrigued to see as well if I can, play the game.
If not, I finally get to win again.
Yeah, exactly. You
I
definitely
just have to cherish those.
Or you have to wait half an hour while I have analysis paralysis trying to work out just what my options are.
Yeah, and then you do eventually figure it out, and I'm like, okay, you win. Congratulations. Anyway, that's my number 2, Raz, A Dance of Love.
My number 2 is a follow-up game, again, from a game that I loved in 2023. In fact, we both did. That was our number 1 game of last year, which was Hegemony. The follow-up game is World Order by the same designers and publishing team. This game is different in that Hegemony was looking at different social classes and the way that they interact together. This is about different nations, and it's about international relations. And actually, what's really interesting is we at Essen got a chance to talk to the designers about Hegemony and then about World Order. And they are even more excited, I would say, about World Order because it's the focus of their academic research. They are in academia, and that's their focus, actually, not what Hegemony is focused on, but this. And so if they can do so much with Hegemony to teach people about the levers that can be used in in a society because of different incentives.
Yeah, the dynamics of motivation.
Yeah. And I did learn a lot from it. It came intuitively, but also it feels like, that makes total sense why that happens that way. And they use it as an educational tool. And now they want to do the same for international relations. In this game, it's set in 2010, and the players all play as one of the 4 global powers in the world. So the US, Russia, China, or the EU. And basically you are responsible for everything that's happening with the relationships between those nations. But you're also trying to, I suppose, rewrite history or change the course of history based on the decisions that you make and the repercussions of those decisions. But also you're focused on what's happening domestically as well, because of course, if you're producing resources and things that are happening domestically, that has a flow-on effect to how you interact with other nations. Again, there is so little information out there about this game at this point in time, but I'm really intrigued to just see how they tackle that subject matter. I'm really interested to see what I can learn from the game. It was interesting having a conversation with them about what it would feel like to play as a player playing as Russia, given what's happening in the world at the moment. And I for one was like, I just can't imagine playing as Russia. And I think that's probably part of the reason why it's, set in 2010, and it's really about a blank slate from that point, and then what you choose to do influences that the course of what then happens. So, they tackled a lot of quite difficult subject matter in hegemony in a very
very tactful way.
Yeah, very tactful, but also it's not emotionally charged. It's very much about the dynamics that occur. And so I think they'll do a fairly good job here. I'm excited to see how it plays and what I can learn about international relations off the back of that. So that is my number 2, World Order.
And my number 1 is a game that I am so hyped about. I don't think I've ever been this hyped about a game ever.
What?
Ever.
Really?
And
most hyped?
I actually don't know that much about it. Because what's known, so okay, the game is Spiritfire, which is all about, it's an open world, non-linear narrative. But the cool thing about this is it's sort of a journey into a fantasy realm. But ultimately, the journey is a discovery and exploration of yourself. So it's all about not what you do. You go out and you fight these monsters. There's actually no combat in it. It's about it's not about what you do. It's about who you are as you interact with the world. And so I was like, as I was reading and seeing all the content around, it's like, this sounds incredible. This is sort of like everything that I make my life sort of about, it's sort of this introspective journey, trying to understand and discover, who am I, and what drives me, and what makes me me, and all of that sort of stuff. So that in a game, that's pretty much all I know about this game. But everything, I think, well, one, aesthetically, it also looks pretty cool. There's all these, it looks like there's obviously a lot of different, it's been kind of compared to big sort of open world type, is it MMOs? The way that they, yes, I don't even know what MMOs stand for, but it's kind of like World of Warcraft, but it's how do you do something like that, a world that's that big without combat, and make it interesting? And the whole thing about this is you are the story, and I'm like, yes, I am in. I don't know what this is going to be about, but I am in for this journey. So I'm excited for that.
Actually, what was really interesting, it was only 2 days prior to this that Maggie was saying, I wish there was a game that existed that was like this. And she basically described this exact game. 2 days later, I saw the game announcement, and I was like,
wow.
What? And then I was like, Maggie, I think this is the game that you've been looking for. And she read it, and she said that she put it out into the universe. That's why it happened.
Well, this is the thing of the whole manifesting thing. That was a very quick manifesting, but obviously that was in under production for a lot longer than I had the desire and But I am so hyped. I just cannot wait for this game. So that's Spiritfire, my number 1.
Now, actually, what's interesting is my number 1 also is a bit like a manifestation of a game that I wish would exist, because my number 1 is Civolution by Stefan Feld, which is his first foray into a much harder, longer game experience, and also the first time he's created a 4X style game. And so if you are not familiar with 4X, usually this takes place in space.
Very commonly,
commonly in space. And if you watch the channel, you'll know that space is not really a theme that we enjoy. In fact, I will tolerate, if we think about something like evacuation, I just love the mechanics.
I'll go to that space any day. Yeah.
I love the mechanics and the story of that it's it doesn't really matter that it's in space, but most of the time space is just I'll tolerate it if I like the game. But in a game like Eclipse Second Dawn of the Galaxy, I could really see myself loving this 4X game. But the layers of theme on that game, especially when it comes to the tech trees relating to upgrading your spaceship, that's boring for me. So boring. Get me back to farming. And Stefan Feld is a Euro designer, a very famous Euro designer. And so what's really interesting is this is essentially a Civ builder combined with a 4X style game, but it drops one of the X's of the 4X's. One of them is, Exterminate, which is combat-based. There's no combat in this game. And instead of going out with spaceships and exploring space, you are traversing these different terrains in the middle of the table where you're going to be able to like find food to feed your workers, because you have to feed your workers.
It almost sounds like Uwe Rosenberg.
I know,
3X.
right?
I would play that as well.
Yeah, well, it is like a classic Euro-style game. You've got to go and feed your workers. But it does have a lot of other elements that are very 4X-y. So every player has this really interesting, huge tech tree. Like, actually,
quite a table hog. Yeah.
it is such a table hog. It is ridiculous. And we've only seen a prototype that we saw at Essenspiel, but we weren't able to sit down and play it. And might I add, the game is exceptionally long. So they were saying for the, if you want to sit down and do a demo, it would take an hour to teach and then 3 hours to play. So a 3-hour game, that's quite a long experience.
Big investment of time.
Big investment in time. But in this game, you essentially it's dice worker placement as well. Again, very Euro-esque. So you're rolling your pool of dice, and then on your turn, you're able to place 2 of those dice down into areas that you have unlocked, and that's going to give you your actions. And you continue doing that until you want to reset and re-roll your pool of dice. As you do that, you are setting off a timer that is essentially the tracking for the rounds of the game. And once it reaches a certain amount, it's going to end that round. There are 4 rounds in the game. At the end of each round, there's going to be events, there's going to be scoring, and that's the time where you need to feed your workers. So that's kind of the structure of the game. But apparently, there's a lot to learn. There's many, many different actions that you can take. It reminds me a bit of, in a way, like Feast for Odin, in that there's just so many options available to you. And so just the cognitive load is really in just learning what all of those actions are and how you can take them. And once you've got that down, I think the actual flow of the game doesn't seem too hard. So anyway, the more I read about it, it started lower on my list, and the more I read about it, I was like, you know what, I actually really enjoy 4X games, and this is just a setting that I enjoy much more. I'm excited to see, how my civilization evolves throughout the course of this game.
I enjoyed how you were like explaining to me how it's like sometimes like you could decide something like, is your civilization going to focus on developing or discovering the wheel versus like developing
growing
wings. Yeah, so if you grow wings, then you're going to be able to, like, your workers are going to be able to sort of fly through spaces. So so it sounds like that sounds really intriguing.
From all the early experiences that people have had and have written early, accounts of their first games, it just sounds like there's lots of different avenues like that you can take, lots of different strategies that all kind of end in a very competitive endpoint. We love games like that. So that is why it is my number 1 Civolution. And that's our top 10 most anticipated new games. For the year.
We mostly are completely responsible for them being in the world through our manifesting powers, clearly. The designers and publishers had very little to do. It was mostly just us willing them into being.
If you have any ideas for games, drop them in the comments. We'll manifest them for you.
We'll just make them happen. And easy, simples.
But we are going to have a follow-up video that's going to be all about expansions and second editions,
big
and
boxes,
all of those things. So we'll have a second list, because there's plenty of those coming as well this year. This is going to be a great year of gaming. I can feel it in my bones.
Come on.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we'll be back with more board game content soon. But otherwise, bye for now.
Bye.